Okay, so this subsection or this small subtopic of research methodology is extremely important. Research methodology basically highlight the attitude of the researcher and how the researcher understand the research issue and the mechanism he or she wants to apply. The knowledge of theory is very essential to the researcher. And the knowledge of theory comes from where? It comes from the literature review. I'm sure you must have studied literature review in some other course also, or at least you know about it. When you do the lit review, primarily you are doing two broad category of review. The one is the theoretical lit review, in which you learn and you analyze and you enhance your knowledge about the theoretical developments taking place in the field of your interest. The second thing is that you also look at how the empirical researchers in the past, your predecessor researchers, how they have been dealing with somewhat, if not same, but similar issues. Get my point? So on the one hand, it's not a bad idea to begin with to read some good textbooks to get the conceptual knowledge about the topic you're interested in. And at the same time, it's also important that you see how the previous researchers have addressed the same issue. So that makes lit review basically, I don't really want to say that you have two categories of your lit review section, but it's a rule, it's an unsaid rule that you, on the one hand, highlight the underpinning theories in the lit review, but you also highlight the empirical research development which are being taking place in your field, okay? Research methodology comes exactly from this type of knowledge and the attitude. The knowledge you have about your research topic will actually make a lot of sense when you make a choice whether you want to study the phenomenon with the help of quantitative research or qualitative research. You see the point? Sometimes we are already bent upon choosing certain type of methodology. Hey, I would choose quantitative data analysis or the qualitative data analysis, but sometimes you, or ideally, it should come from the lit review about this thing. You know, but sometimes we know that we're already committed to a certain type of methodology. It's very important to understand the difference between the research methods and research methodology. Have you heard about these two phrases, research methods and research methodology?
Yeah.
Huh?
Did you say research manner?
Research methods.
Matters.
Yeah. And the research methodology. I can say you they're not same.
Methodology, I know about research matter.
Research methods, yeah.
I think it's about the research matters is about qualitative research.
Yeah.
But the research methodology is about quantitative.
No. Both are methods. One method could be quantitative, or other could be qualitative. But methodology, if you notice, the research methods are more about the technical choice. Hey, I would be analyzing the data quantitatively or qualitatively. Quantitatively, you, for example, go to the annual report of a company and took their sales, data last 20 years, or stock price, download the data, or if you want to do the secondary, not secondary, but the primary data, you can send the questionnaire to people, 100 people. Hey guys, give the sales figure of your company. How many employees you have. We want to see the productivity of employees. And then the people fill the survey, you collect the data, you put in the Excel, and then you start doing the quantitative data analysis. It could be qualitative. You're interviewing people. Or you are, you have some, for example, or making some case study. That could be qualitative research, but both are methods. Both are methods. Methodology includes research method plus the attitude of the researcher. Attitude, you make a choice about the data. I want to study this period to this period. I want to collect the data from 2007 until 2012. Why? Because maybe the topic of my interest is to study the financial crisis. I want to study the data from 2020 and onwards. Why? Because maybe I want to study the impact of COVID-19. Is the point? I make a choice. As a researcher, who made this choice? 2020. Why 2020? Because I want to study this phenomenon in the light of, with the background of COVID-19. Like, for example, this gentleman has done this research that how the large Russian cap companies, how they're performing since the COVID-19 impact. Now, had he taken this data from 2018 and finishing had his study period between 2017 to 2019. You see the point? 2017, you start taking the data, 2 years data you take. 2 years data you take. And what are you studying? The impact of COVID-19 on the performance of the companies. Will it make any sense? No, it will not, because COVID-19 started in February 2020. So the data you make a choice about should also be in sync with the relevance, the thesis title or the research topic you have chosen for. You see my point? So the choice of data, what you do is what is not part of method, but part of methodology, because it shows your attitude. It shows your attitude. Again, somebody want to make a choice about the Russian companies. Has COVID-19 only affected Russian companies? I'm asking you a question. Has COVID-19 affected only Russian companies? No. Somebody could have chosen Swedish companies, Dutch companies. Again, it shows what? The attitude of researcher. Again, coming back to his example, the choice of big, large cap Russian companies. Large cap means the companies whose stock price values, market values big. Has COVID-19 only affected large Russian companies, not SMEs, not small ones? Yes or no? It has not affected. Has COVID-19 affected only the big Russian companies? We focus on Russia only Russian companies, only big Russian companies, not medium, not small. It has affected. So somebody might make a choice of selection of the companies which are SME, for example. What does it show? The researcher's attitude. Again, tell me one thing. Look at the word I'm using, performance. Has COVID-19 affected the performance? Performance can be measured by many ways. Please tell me in how many ways you can measure the company's performance. If you want to, Azam, if you want to measure the company's performance, how would you measure? How? Which indicators would you take? Fantastic. How much you produce? Very good indicator.
Revenue growth.
Revenue growth, that how far, to what extent their sales revenue is growing. More revenue growth means good time, good performance, down, negative, bad performance. Profitability, fantastic. 3, sorry. Efficiency of cost structure. 4. You have to say something.
That's an easy one.
Can I say the share market?
Oh yeah, that's one. And yeah.
Look, how many of you are sitting here? 5. Same, I almost gave you same topic. almost similar, comparable performance of the company. You gave me 5 different, or maybe more than 5 different parameters of what? Performance. So first of all, why I'm saying that to understand the methodology, you need to know you should have good grasp over literature. So first of all, you guys should have studied in depth what exactly is meant by the company's performance, how we measure it, how your predecessor researchers have measured the performance. And then you come to 3rd chapter, which is methodology. And then you make your choices. You can have the multiple performance measures. But can you choose all of them? Or do you need to choose all of them? Of course not. But when you make a choice, you have to justify why you chose, Azam, why you chose production.
I see that I can do it better.
Good, very good. It means that because of your engineering, maybe your thesis, even though is in the field of business studies, but you want to have a flavor of engineering. So you want to focus on the company's factory type of production. Maybe Ivan has this approach of not the factory type of settings, but the corporate office type of setting. And he's more interested in the accounting way of revenue. Maybe people like me are not only focusing on the same, I'm talking about the same company, which you study, which he studies. Maybe my approach is not to study the factory type, neither factory type, nor the corporate office type, but I want to see what is happening about the company outside market. Which market? Helsinki Stock Exchange, for example. So maybe I'm looking at the company's performance from the stock market point of view. Maybe Daniil is more into sustainability, more about the environment, and he's looking at the same company's performance from the point of view of their efforts towards sustainability, cost cutting, less wastage, less addition to pollution, for example. Look, we all have different criteria. We might end up having the same thesis topic. But look what we're doing. We are measuring differently. And this measure is not something we just randomly pick up. No, we give the well-argued justification. In thesis or in research, you have to in italics, bold, and inverted commas. You have to justify your choices. But at the same time, you also have to highlight why you did not take the alternative route. So Azam, when you say that I'm measuring the company's performance by production, you also have to you not only have to justify the inclusion of production, but you also have to give a justification for those things which you could have alternatively taken up. Right? So you justify what you take, and you also justify what you don't take. This is part of methodology. You see my point? So methodology is way beyond the methods. Methods are very technical. For example, I can say, find the average. I'm taking very rooted, very basic method. Find the average of sales revenue before COVID, after COVID, and make a conclusion. Is your company performance getting better or worse? This is method. But when you have a choice about the data, about the number of, then the number of firms, by the way. Are you taking 100 companies? Are you taking 1,000 companies? Are you taking companies from one country or multiple countries? Are you making some comparison like Jarko's case? He took data of the Finnish, the Nordic CEOs pay, and he also take the data of the American CEO. So his methodology is a comparative thing. He want to compare things. Look, he could have done his research and thesis by picking up only one country. Nothing could have stopped him. But why he chose? Because this is his choice. But again, choice shows freedom. Justification shows responsibility. No responsibility, no freedom. No justification, no choice. So methodology has a cost. The cost is that you have to give a reasoning for the selection or not selection of things which you talk about. Does it make sense? So research method is technical, and research methodology is technical plus the behavioral or the attitudinal side of the research. So,
What do you see as it's sort of like different from the consequent research strategy? Or are they like synonyms?
whose research strategy?
Yeah, research strategy.
Research strategy is that, first of all, these are the broad issues. When you decide about them, then you form your research strategy. How would you approach? So definitely research methodology is somewhat, it fits into this behavioral or attitudinal side. But first of all, these are the big issues that are you going to, what type of research methodology you pick up. It has to be justified in literature review. And then after you decide these big questions, then you talk about the research strategy and so on and so forth. Research strategy is more about nuts and bolts type of thing, when you have taken the big decisions already and now your job is to execute them. Even though the methodology is about implementation, but you have to think about the implementation also. So this is thinking about the implementation. And when you're implementing things which you have already decided, then it comes to strategy and so on and so forth. Yeah, make sense? Okay. If you find I'm a bit fast, then stop me. So it's very important that you understand the meaning of research methods and methodology in the beginning. And I want to give you an example, even though maybe you will not understand much yet, but I'll try my best to. This is the article which we published some years ago, 2 years ago, me and Anne. It's about the board of directors, the capital structure, investment decisions, and firm performance, and empirical study of Nordic firms. And here we do lit review. I will not go into that. And then we have the hypothesis in the end. I'll come to I have a separate topic dedicated to hypothesis, how important they are. And then comes the research design, which is also, I can say, research methodology. Look at this. If I have to give you example of research methods, please look very carefully. I know you will not understand yet, but I want to give you some quick example.
Let's say that you do like a sort of like qualitative research and you use like survey for that purpose. You set like a questionnaire to and gather that way, so the information to your questions what you have. But then you get the answers, but instead of like using qualitative like data analysis methods, you use quantitative data analysis methods.
For sure.
Is it still like seen as a qualitative research, or
no. I think in the qualitative research, like in the survey method, I think we are mixing the data collection and the analytical methods. If I'm a quantitative researcher, let's have the base that let's assume that I'm only quantitative research and I need data. The data can come from two sources, the primary and secondary. The primary data is that I send some questionnaires to the different companies in Finland, and those accountants are sending me the data about, Azam said, production column. So 100 companies, production column, Ivan revenue column, and then the growth of profitability, stock market, and so on and so forth. They're giving the data, and then I collect the data from different 100 companies through questionnaire. Okay. Then I made my Excel sheet, company A, company B, company C, and now what I have quantitative data. Numeric data. Yeah. Whereas in qualitative research, I can only have I can have only 2 or 3 or 4 interviews. You see my point?
The data that you use for the research purposes.
Human factor, you mean?
Yeah.
No, we do take. The human factor is that we see that, for example, in the kind of research I do, I often see that what type of education qualification the board of directors have. So I see their education, I see their experience, I see their field of expertise, and I also see how independent the board, how independent the people working are, like how independent is the board of directors. Of course, I don't interview, I don't meet people, I don't interact, but I also believe in the notion that the numbers are also a language. The numbers are also language. We say in Latin, lingua pura. Numbers speak. The company's records, basically, they are the mean of communication to the outside world. Whenever your company reports are audited, yeah, and you publish them in the public domain, these are basically, you are talking, speaking about your company's performance to the outside world. So it's like the annual report or the data is a company's spokesperson. Now you can say that they can speak whatever they want. No, it's not true. Well, to some extent it's true, but not fully true, because what they speak through number is audited by the well-respected auditors. So somebody is putting a check on the quality of communication, what you speak. So somewhat human touch. Well, if you mean by the face-to-face human touch, yes, it's missing. But if you want to draw some inferences about the human side, yes, you can get from the secondary data as well.
Well, what I was sort of like lost was that with quantitative research, it's not like that wonderful of the human factor. So because if I'm like thinking about that, you do like a survey, then you ask sort of like asking about people's kind of opinions. It's not really like
yeah. But for example, there are many ways you can actually have you can actually quantify the behavioral side. For example, if I send a survey to you and I say, how do you rate this product on a scale of 0 to 5? So you're giving me your opinion, right? But of course, you can write a text also at the bottom, which I can use for the analysis purpose. But when you say 2, rank, 3, 4, 5, what does it show? Your the behavior side.
Yeah, but then the question is that let's say that you rate like products, but is it like really sort of like affecting on your behavior? So would you sort of like rather buy that product that you say that it's like better than the other one? So
well, it depends upon the question that rate the product post-consumption and pre-consumption. So for example, the survey could be designed in a way that you are asked this question, that you haven't bought the product, you have only watched the advertisements or the word of mouth. How do you see this product? And then you use it, and then you say, okay, now it's a post-usage survey. How do you like it? For example, when you buy some automobile, yeah, you can give your survey that why I want to buy Toyota hybrid. But now after 1 year or 2 year of use, you can also be asked a survey. Now you have bought your, and some companies do it. When you buy some product from them, they ask you why you want to buy this. And then after some years, they also send you another survey that now you have, you have done it. So how do you see it? Like in YAMP, we do it. Whenever the students join, like in the IB, we do it very often in the International Business Program. Whenever the students join, we have a early session and the mid-session survey about course objective and how things are going on. And then we have the post course survey. And then we compare that, hey, have the students' expectation gone down? So pre-consumption, post-consumption, basically. But now, coming back to your point, in a more solution-based way, there is always a possibility that you can use the mixed method, in which you also have this direct human touch, people's, how they view the things, and also some number-based studies as well. So this trend of mixed method is getting very popularity.
Yeah, that was sort of a conclusion. So I don't know, does it like really like matter that whether you talk about like really strictly about like qualitative research and quantitative research, when it's actually might be that it's actually sort of like mixing things?
No, look, you are, let's say you want to have some interviews. Yeah. Semi-structured interview. You have some ready-made questions. You know that I'm going to ask these questions. That is the method. Now, who you interview, you call somebody and this gentleman said, oh, sorry, you know what, we were meant to have our interview today, but unfortunately I'm busy. I can't meet you. And I can't meet you until next 2 months. And you want to meet somebody. And then what you do? You see that who else could be available. That is your attitude side. That is the behavioral side. And then you are interviewing the person, and it's a semi-structured interview. Will you only ask the questions which you have in the list, or will you ask some follow-on questions as well? Like the talk from talk. When we talk, things develop. When you do it, you ask the question which is in the list, how the company visualize itself in the next 5 years. Remember, this was in the list. And then the person says, yes, we have seen we have been having very good past. The present is very promising, and the future is also good, unless we make some big changes. You will, believe me, as an investigator, you will not go to the next question yet. Hang on. What big things you are talking about? You know what, we are having some board of directors problem. The CEO and the chairperson, they have some issues, and we are trying to that there is a better leadership. And believe me, you will like to spend some more time on this topic, on this discussion. That shows the attitudinal side. You could have ignored it. So this shows the attitudinal side, which is more in the methodology rather than method. That is method. That is a method. Yeah. But you don't know which follow-up question. Sometimes you have the list of follow-up questions, but sometimes it's so instant and so spontaneous. And sometimes the person is not even willing to disclose to you, and you have to manage the situation. Some CEO would say, hey, send me the list of questions beforehand. And of course you send it. My condition of answering you is that I will not answer anything else except these questions. So then you have to then you have to change your behavior or your attitude in a different way. Some CEOs, some people you meet, you feel very comfortable and you feel like asking more. It have an impact on your attitude, right? Even though the list of questions is same, but because of this behavioral side, you end up, you can't say that all my 5 interviews have been very homogeneous. No, they were different. And the difference comes from this human factor, which is more in the field of methodology rather than the method. I wanted to give you an example. Do you see something very scary looking thing here? This is the formula. I can say method, but in simple words, I can say that this was the model I wanted to use. I get the data from all the things which you would just talk about, and then I fit all this data into this model and run some test, and I get some idea, some results, yeah? But see, is this the only thing I'm writing in this chapter? No, I'm writing that in the current study, I took 93 non-financial companies. I picked a number. I picked some companies with certain background. I picked them from certain source like stock exchange, NASDAQ Helsinki Stock Exchange. I picked up the data period from 2003 to 2018. This is not method, this is methodology. So when I combine method, which I showed you, that formula type of thing, and these kind of my choices, that makes it. I mean, I could have easily written this chapter 3 or section 3 as research methodology, research design. Of course, there's a little bit difference, but I could have safely written research methodology also here. So research methodology is more about choices. Choices is right, and the price is the justification. Justified. If you haven't justified it, then it's a limitation of your study. Make sense? Any questions?
If we do not justify our methodology, we cannot say limitations at the end of the work.
If you miss something, have you missed because you forgot? If you're forgotten, then this is not a limitation, it's an error, it's a mistake. Limitation is that you were willing to, maybe you were aware of it, maybe you couldn't get enough information to justify it. Maybe you couldn't get enough. For example, you were willing, Azam, you were willing to check the company's performance by production. But when you actually were getting the data, you could only find the company's revenue information. And then you had no choice but to use the revenue as a performance of the company. But you didn't forget that you were willing to take production. Now, this is a limitation. And this you will justify in the discussion that because of the lack of availability of the data about the production, the researcher have taken revenue as a performance measure. You didn't forget production. But the fact is that you have not been able to take production because maybe that data is not available. Maybe that data is confidential. This is limitation. But if you forgot something when you were writing methodology section, but then you woke up when you were writing discussion, then no, then that's not a limitation. It's a mistake you committed. It's an error you committed. It's called error of omission. You omitted it, you forgot it. And if you now remember it, please go back to your methodology section and write it down, what you forgot. But when you're conscious, but you are not getting the information, then it's a limitation. Yeah, so methodology is the manner or the attitude, approach. We all are different researchers, we are human beings. We have different approach towards everything in life. And of course, we have different approach towards our research also. If I give you exactly same thesis topic, everything same to 5 different people, believe me, you will end up doing different form of research. You will not do same. even though your topic is same, if I say, hey, only Finland data, only Finnish companies from this period to this period, you will still end up making some, maybe you will still like to take production as a performance, and he will still like to take revenue as a performance measure, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that this human touch always remains. And this human touch underlying basically the attitudinal side, the behavioral side of the researcher, which is more a part of methodology rather than method. In the method, you have very clear-cut structure. That is why I'm using the word technical. It's technical. It's like machine, input in, output. So it's a more like an input-output relationship. That is method. Methodology is beyond this. Yeah, so now you know that you can that how important is research methodology in business administration too. Yeah, because it puts together all the theories you study in a logical, reliable manner. In the real world, also you can solve do you want to solve this big problem? Again, it comes to the approach. Do you want to move from general to particular, or from particular to general? So again, this is an approach which underlying whether you pick up quantitative research or the qualitative research. The main problems with the methodology, it's very important to know that what is missing. Connect with the reason for the research objectives. There is no connection between your research objectives / questions with the methodology. Imagine your research question is, does education level have an impact on the crime in the society? This is your research question. Now tell me one thing. When you hear this research question, what type of lit review will you do? Maybe you see that, you know what, Finland is safe city, a country in general, but in certain pockets of Finland, we have observed that in the last, I'm just making a story. In the last 5 years, the crime rate has really spurred. There is a very big spike in certain pockets of Finland. The crime rate is really going up. And you are also studying that the crime rate depends upon, and then you start interesting about the crime rate. So there's a research motivation. And then you also do some basic lit review, and you find that the crime rate depends upon certain socio-economic background you come from. And one measure of socio-economic background is the education level. So by doing some lit review, you end up making a research objective. Does crime rate have an impact on, does educational level have an impact on the crime rate?
Does we have the business?
Huh? No, this is your research question. And to support this research question, you need what? You need to do the lit review, right? So what type of lit review will you do then? You will do about, yeah, go ahead.
Previously, like the crime rate was rising or decreasing based on the on the like education level in the society.
So what has been the previous researchers saying about the relationship between the crime rate and the level of education? And the question is that because I'm studying in the Finnish context, it could be possible that there's no previous studies published in the context of Finland. All right, let's find some other country. So even though the social background, the institutional settings will not be same. I mean, if I end up finding 3 studies about India, 4 studies about Guatemala, maybe 10 studies about USA, couple of from Australia, all right? I can't replicate their finding exactly in Finland because Finland is a different society. But at least I can learn some basic theories that how what type of theories they have used. Researchers published in the Australian context, Indian context, Chinese context, Philippines context. I will learn some theories from them. And those theories would help me to write my literature section, that how those instincts, how those motivations, what are the motivations behind the crime rate? Which factors motivate you to commit a crime or not to commit? Is it purely psychological thing? Is it purely the impulsive thing? Is it more like a peer pressure because you're living in the company of those people who are like petty criminals and you end up, is it something you want to show your masculinity that, you know what, I can do it? In some countries, when you break the rule, people say with the proud, you know what, I've done it. So what are the factors? So, and then you study about the education, how education, so you make a set of keywords. And then when you have gone through the literature review, you are able to form your hypothesis, which we shall study soon. And then you start collecting the data about the crime rate. And in the quantitative research, you will get some. Now imagine, when you were collecting the data, there was no data about the crime and education. It was more about national income or people's consumption pattern, or maybe it was the education data about the primary school. But we all know that the crime problem, I can go back to the same background about that in certain cities of Finland, the crime rate is increasing, but none of them is, or the crime rate among the primary school kids is nothing, is negligible. Mainly, the crime rate is about those kids who go to secondary school or above, you know? So it means that I have calculated the variable called education. But which education data I got? About the primary school. That is not even relevant for my study. You see the point? So it means that there is a gap between what? There's a gap between my research questions and my methodology. Another thing, the crime data has, the crime has increased in the last 5 years. But I'm taking the data either from 10 years thing or maybe just last year. So I'm not saying that I can't make a pattern over the time. So that could be a problem. So the point here is that there should be some linkage, logical, well-argued linkage between your research objectives / questions and your methodology. If not, then we are missing. It's like you are a cop and you are told to examine a bank robbery, and you end up examining the traffic violations, basically. So you have the data about the traffic violations. Oh, come on, your job was to investigate the bank robbery, mate. What have you done? So your research, your investigation objective was something else, and what you are doing at the ground level, at the methodology level, is something different. So there's no relationship. That's a limitation. That's a problem of, and very often we see this problem that the researcher, especially when they don't read their own work, which is the very difficult thing, they end up having this problem that there is a deviation. This is why I always suggest my students that don't send me 20-page long text. No, send me a few pages and then a few pages and then a few pages and then a few pages, so that not only I know what you're doing, but you also know that how you are building up step by step by step. Don't take a big leap, but go in a very the child, those baby steps, like a few pages every time. A common flaw of methodology is that all the theories which you learned or the conceptual thing you learned either have no relationship with your data collection and data analysis, or it's somewhat contradictory. I told you the example of contradiction. that your job was to analyze the crime, the linkage between the education and the crime rate, and you end up getting the data for something else. Hey, you can do one more problem. You can also make one more mistake.
Research and you get contradictory data. Isn't that a finding?
No, contradictory finding is a finding, but not contradictory data. You will understand with this example, which I'm going to give. The research question is that what is the correlation, linkage between the education and the crime rate in certain pockets of Finland? You have identified that, you know what, in this part of Helsinki, not this part, but only this part in Tampere, but not that part, there is a problem. And you want to examine it. But guess what? You have taken the data from Vaasa, Oulu, and Seinäjoki, where this problem doesn't exist. So there is a contradiction between about the data. Look, when you have the wrong data, you may still end up getting some logical conclusion. But is that logical conclusion applicable to your research objective? So be very particular that you take the data which is in sync with, in alignment with your research objectives. Yeah, justify the data time. Now, justify the data. Like you have your different justification about data, performance of the company, time period. Now imagine I'm going to study the company's performance during the financial crisis, 2007. I hope you know that 2007 was a big financial crisis in the world. But I'm taking the data from all other years except 2007 or 8. It's a problem. It's the problem about the time period of the data. In 2007, the financial markets collapsed. All the stock exchanges in the world almost fell like a pack of cards. It means definitely I should study the stock market data. Whereas my performance data is about the company's production or cost cutting. Hey, it is not wrong, but it's not right either.
Irrelevant?
Yeah, it's a data. It's not a bad data, but it's not the data which I need. So therefore, you use the very right word. Your thing in research, it's not black and white. Very often we come across the gray areas as well. Sometime we pick up data, but it's not the best of the data. It's not the best of the method. It's not the best of the theories. You see, even though they're not wrong, but they are not relevant. Good word. My teacher, Marco Jarvenpa, he is now dean of Vaasa Business School. He would always say that SHAB research should be relevant and interesting. Relevant, because if it is not relevant, then why you do it in the first place? You could have gone to a pub or a bar or spent some time with the friends. Isn't? And it should be interesting. You know why interesting? That even if you he would say me that if SHAB, your grandparents asked you, what are you researching these days? Will you tell them that I'm studying principal component analysis by using this methodology or that methodology? No. How would you explain them? Tell them a story. Rephrase your research in a way that you are able to tell your granny a story in the form of a story. And if you are able to do this thing, that you can speak about your research in a storytelling manner, your research have very high chances of being successful. Because you know what exactly at the ground level you are researching. So it's very important that your research is relevant, number one. Number two, it's interesting. People want to listen to the story. People don't have time to read my, goodness gracious me, who would read this model and tables? How many people would? And how many people would understand? But you know what?
Whatever for like academic work, you need to like provide or write like publications, and you are like necessarily publish that basically you don't have enough to like provide crap.
Yes.
So it's not really like having any value or being like connected.
No, but tell you something. People may not have time. Number one, maybe they have intellect and they have knowledge. People may not have time. Maybe people are reading, so the reaction time is so fast. Look, when we watch Ule news or something, how much reaction time we have? News come and go. But it doesn't mean that we are not interested in the social or political or economic. We are interested. That's why we are watching news, by the way. Otherwise, we would watch MTV. But we don't have time to go deeper into, for example, you are watching Ule news, there's a lot of things, and there is a problem. You know what, in certain parts of Finland, farmers are protesting because the potato prices are going down because the government is importing potato from Sweden. Our next door neighbor. Look, you are interested in the news, you are interested in the farmer's well-being. Maybe you yourself are a farmer. But I don't think you will have time or energy to go deep into the problem of potato growers in Finland, or you will not visit them or join the demonstration. It's a bit complicated. You know what I mean? So when you don't have time and energy for these things, then the question is, where is the story? In my research, where is the story? The story is definitely not in those mathematical models, but the story is here. This is the story, which I won't say that everybody on planet Earth will understand. I will not say this. I will not make this claim, but most of the people can understand it. Because here, I'm not using nobody knows that I'm using any mathematical stuff here. It's just the main theme, the main background, what motivated me to do this research, what I explored, what my findings are, and how it overall make a picture. Or people would be interested, if they like this, look, I'm telling you a very interesting hint to review the articles for your actual thesis. If I'm a student and I find some article which is interesting, which is relevant to me, right? Look, first of all, the article is relevant. Now, the most important behavioral side is what will make me to read it. I would never read the article the way is given. I always read the abstract, so I have some story type of idea, and then straight away I go to the discussion and conclusions. And once I know something about the article, then I read from the introduction. So it means that I have some inkling what I'm reading. I don't want to be shocked or surprised in the introduction and in the lit review. Definitely not in the methodology when I see those very horrible models. No.
You read the abstract, get the idea.
Yeah.
But then the conclusion is what that the writer can actually sort of provide to you. What is the new, like, new information?
Yeah.
And then you want to question that, like, statement that you received.
Absolutely.
And you want to like see the methodology that you actually sort of like trust in that.
Yeah.
But
to me, what they do, what they've done is very important. For me, how they have done it, have they collected the data from 2008, starting from 2008 or 2010? Who cares? Whether they have taken this variable or that variable, have they used some linear regression or non-linear regression? These are the things depending upon my appetite. As my appetite grows for the knowledge, then I would go. But I don't want to start from the difficult to the easiest. For me, the order of, look, when you gain knowledge, you also have to follow a certain structure and the order. And the order is that we go from always the easy to difficult. Yeah. So I think it's very important that first you get familiar with, I mean, whenever in my other courses, like, for example, Ivan will be doing it and Daniil has done it. Whenever I give them some articles to review, I tell them, hey, never dare to look at the methodology section unless I tell you. But for you, it's different now because your course is based on the this quantitative research. So and still that is why. Look, did I start from the methodology section straight away? No. Brief research objectives and hypothesis. So still see the story side first, and then go back to the how they do it. So objective and hypothesis underline what is the story about. And then the next phase should be the methodology. But definitely, if you are my student doing research with me, I will still follow that, hey, you know what, do this order. Always first abstract, discussion, and then start reading in the order. Yeah. We'll come back to reliability, robustness, and the sorry. Sorry.
When you start like writing like articles, do you then like go like starting from the middle of the methodology part, or do you start from the abstract and actually sort of like start to scratch the?
No. We always first see that is this research even relevant? Is this topic of discussion even in the public domain of discussion? Look, it doesn't matter how many people, but is this topic being debated by some top university professors, by some top intellectual world, you know, which can be 0.00001% of the entire population, whatever. So we see that is this topic in debate? And then that is a starting point. That is a starting point. That is, if this topic of debate is in the US, is this topic, or can this topic be a debate in Finland as well? So sometimes you have to transplant the ideas from one setting to another setting. It doesn't work always. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. If I come from India, right? We have a lot of rice there. If I bring rice plants and start growing in Finland, they will not work. So sometimes the ideas can be transplanted, sometimes they can't. But the starting point definitely is this topic in demand? Is it relevant? Honestly, for a researcher like me, who is not working in Harvard or in Oxford or in Yale or UCLA, if I develop altogether new idea, it's difficult to sell. You see my point?
Let's say that, okay, so first you need to sort of like sell your idea to those who like basically give like funding for research. But after that one, after you like start like doing the concrete like work and you start like writing, then where do you start that like writing work? So
I think first we have a lot of exchange of the abstract ideas. Sometimes I have ended up writing 20 pages many times and then rip them off totally. So it's not like an input-output thing that you have this much, you read so much and you produce this much. No, it doesn't work like this. Sometimes something seems to be very important in the very beginning. But then you say that, hey, I think it's important, but nobody else knows things this way. This is overly researched theme.
That's from your process, like from
My process, the first point, the center of gravity for me is always, is this topic in demand? Do people discuss or want to discuss about this topic? But then how do I know? Well, look, when you look at the thesis structure, life looks very simple and linear, right? You have the research background, motivation, research questions, and then literature review. The question is that, are you reincarnation of Einstein, that you got some great research objectives, you were sleeping, and when you wake up, you have those objectives and questions? No. You have to do lit review to polish and form your research questions. To know the research background, what is happening? A lot of financial scandals are happening. Okay, I know a little bit about it, but I have to first learn in depth lit review to know even my research questions, polish them. And then once I settle down, then I start doing more formal literature review, which appears in the thesis as chapter 2. But the process is not linear as looks in the thesis. Look, when the thesis is written, everything looks so systematic and so structured. But in fact, the whole journey is so non-linear, like a cyclical process.
Why I sort of like set this question was you is that I know that you have like a lot of applications, which you sort of like showed first. And yeah, when I've also like worked in university, it is sort of the way that you are like a, could you say like a actor, like providing applications. So it's sort of like a way, which is like the easy way to like approach and start like writing work, because I guess that like that writing work is actually quite a big like obstacles to actually students get like creative.
Yeah. No, I think we don't do the factory type of thing. In fact, it's a part of my pedagogical way that, like in this course, you see, the student do the thesis, and then from the thesis, we make some conference paper and even the publication. And then that publication become a recommended reading for the next year students. For me, it was very easy to not to show our work, YUMC in-house work as a recommended article, but pick up from some top journal of finance, you know, those very complicated people who talk very abstract ideas. But I thought that for a beginner, I assume, at least 3 of you, that you are the beginner in the quantitative research. So for me, it's much easier to have that thing which is more approachable, which you can find it comparatively easy. And you can also discuss with the teacher and even the researchers who are sitting in the classroom. So to make it more grounded, to make it more level playing, I followed this approach, but definitely not the factory type of things. I don't write hundreds of articles. I don't have many partners who I write with. I think there are very few people who I write with. Mainly myself or Anne Ascola, and sometime with my students. Yeah, again, if they have interest, because normally when I meet my students in the very early phase, I ask them a question: are you going to write a thesis or the thesis? If they say the thesis, then I make sometimes life very hard. If you want to know the meaning of hard life, you can ask Daniil, but in my absence, not in my present. If you ask me, Daniil, how has been your thesis process? And if I'm there, he would say, great. But maybe he will not say the same thing when I'm outside. But then it's his fault. He said, Shab, I want to write the thesis, not a thesis. Well, choice has a cost. Isn't?
I would say that the last thing that I've been writing in my thesis was the abstract. because like you finalize your abstract when you're completely aware that like discussion conclusions are completely tight and you don't need to rewrite anything more. So the abstract is kind of like the like plain like line you should draw, and you don't do anything more with the people.
But yeah, I guess that even though you probably like the last thing, I guess that you still have like a.
So the quantitative research but I'm very happy about this discussion. That's very important that you guys have interaction and save me from the monologues, which I can't be. If you don't stop me, you have a price to pay, and that is listen to my monologues. Well, as you know, that the quantitative data research is about the quantitative numbers, even though the qualitative data is not excluded in the quantitative research. We have a lot of qualitative research, qualitative variables. Look, our analysis, two things, data and analysis. They're not same. Data is coming in, analysis is the process, and the output is the finding, okay? Data is quantitative, but the data can also be qualitative. For example, coming back to the story, what is the impact of education on the crime rate? What is the cause variable here? What is the cause variable? Education. And what is the output? Crime. So we are basically making a model that crime rate depends upon the education. Crime rate data is numeric. Education data is also numeric. We will be doing some quantitative analysis, but are we ignoring something? Are these people who commit crime, are they coming from a rich background or the poor background? Or the middle income background? Does it show some ranking or scale? Then look, the phenomenon is that does the economic background have an impact also? We can do ranking 1, 2, or 3. Is the crime which reflects, is it coming from any gender specific? We can have the gender based on, again, binary. You know the binary numbers? We call them binary, or we call them, well, these days you can also have non-binary, but still, the idea is still the same. Binary or the dichotomous variables we can take, or we can have this yes or no type of variables. Yeah, these are the qualitative phenomenon. But what are we doing? We are converting these qualitative phenomenon into the quantitative format, but the essence is still qualitative. So there are ways you can incorporate the qualitative data as well, but because the data analysis technique is more or less quantitative, it's still called quantitative research. Okay, so the data, to some extent, remember, you can't take all the qualitative variables. Some variables, like for example, for 5 quantitative, you can take 1 or maybe 2 qualitative variables, but it can't be all qualitative variables. Otherwise, the whole purpose is defeated, right? So there is a possibility that you can take some qualitative data as well. The analysis of data is strictly quantitative. Yes, that's definitely for sure. We take some pre-selected variables and proxies. We make some variables or some proxies. Tell me something. Does education have an impact on the crime rate? What are you measuring here? To implement this research, what do you need?
What level of education you have, what kind of education, quite possibly your age, gender, possibly your cultural background.
Yeah, very good, very good. So you have identified many cause variables. The main cause variable you want to investigate is still, does education have an impact on the crime rate? But you also take some variables which are showing the characteristics of your data, like you said about the age or about the gender or their cultural background. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, secondary variables. Yeah. These are called, as the name itself, you said, Daniil, these are variables. These are variables. So variable is basically in the Excel sheet, all the things which you write, for example, crime rate, education, gender, these all are variables. You know, we label them in each column on top in the first row, and then we write down the numeric numbers. And then in the first column, we say person A, person B, person C, or firm A, firm B, firm C, likewise. You see that? Can you visualize it? You'll see it very, very often.
Something under time is that in these quantitative research questionnaires, you always most commonly ask male or female. At least in Finland, I think even by legislation, you can consider nowadays to be non-binary.
Yes, yes, that's true.
But why none of these questionnaires have a possibility for the person to choose by gender to be non-binary?
Isn't published?
No. Let me rephrase myself again. These questionnaires they give you a possibility to choose male
or female, but not
non-binary.
Non-binary. They don't.
Non-binary.
Why not?
Why?
No, I'm asking the same question to you. Why not? What stops you? If you make a questionnaire, if you want to collect the primary data, what stops you? Do it. Next time when you send some questionnaire, say. Why not? I'm surprised that why people don't do it. They should do it. Yeah.
0 or 3 or any other number.
No, it doesn't matter. It's 0, 1, 2, and that doesn't affect anyway. Just a kind of additional number. That's it. It should be done. So you know the meaning of variables. If you want, I can show you how the variables look like. This data I would share with you at some stage, but not today. And I will also check that this is visible to you through Zoom. No. Let me see. I think you can see it. Anyways, look at these variables. For example, you can see the company's market value, assets, operating profit, this, that. So this is how the variables look like. You see? And this is, for example, it could be that this first company is Nokia, the second company is Valmet, the third company is Finnair, and so on and so forth. So for each company, we get the data about the different variables. Yeah, that's variable. Simple. Variable is what you want to measure, and what you want to measure should exactly corroborate with your research objectives. So there is a very chain link between these things. But one word which I happen to write in the slide, and maybe let me see if it. And the one word which I happen to write in my slide, perhaps it can be intriguing. You may find it. I use the word proxy. Instead of something. Proxy word come from approximate. Approximation. There may be some time a situation then you can't really measure a phenomenon straight away, right? And there may be different options or different possible options, and then you find the option which perhaps you can get or you find it convenient to get, to be honest. Look at the word. I'm slightly drifting away from this crime and no, I don't have to drift away. I can give the same example of proxy, the same which we're discussing about the crime rate and let's say one of the factors which can affect the crime is the regional development, how developed the region is. You see, I gave you example that we are investigating this association between the crime level of education and crime rate in Finland, in some parts, right? Some parts in Helsinki area, some parts in Tampere, some in Keski-Suomi, some could be in the western part, the Swedish-speaking belt. If I'm a researcher, I would think that, you know what, these are different regions in my investigation. Are these different regions having the same level of development? No, they differ in terms of development level. You know, Finland is a country, there is a 1 GDP growth rate per year, but not all the regions have the same GDP growth at the regional level. Tell me something, if you want to find development, the phrase is, are these regions equally developed or differently developed? The word is development. How would you measure development?
I would first ask the definition for development. Are we talking about development by GPD or artistic values or natural? What's the definition of development? Because there's different aspects of development.
Maybe even the birth rate.
Yeah. Here, this again come back. You're not investigating the impact of natural resources of Finland on the wealth of Finland. You're investigating how the level of education is having a crime impact on the crime rate in some parts. So it means you need to visualize there are certain urban hubs, maybe small town, but maybe so it's more like a urban settings. Yeah. What do you see in the urban settings which underline the phrase development? Very good, very good. I like your expression. Possibility to work. So for me, the first measure of development is, in this region, what percentage of people are unemployed?
This is what I meant by, I meant to say that there would need to be a definition for the...
Precisely. And this definition which you gave is a very contextualized. When, I don't want to repeat, but you know the theme, you know the topic we're investigating in this hypothetical example, right? Here, in certain parts of Helsinki, where this problem is existing, if you dig the ground, you might have the gold reserves, but are they relevant to the study at this moment? Are they relevant? Of course not. But in the parts of society where crime rate there exists, unemployment is a big factor. So in this case, one measure of development in the context of our study is what percentage of unemployed people we have. Do we agree? Do you have something else in mind in the context of the study?
Average maternity age.
Sorry?
Average maternity age.
Average maternity age. Good point. What else you see?
Do you have immigrant background?
Very good. What percentage of that area is comprising of the population of immigrants who are not born in, you know, whatever way you define it? What else you see? Even though they could be stereotypes, but still, it's worth investigating. What else you see?
The rate of governmental support.
Something about health. Why don't you guys talk about health?
Okay, sure.
How many doctors per 100 people available in those regions? One of my colleagues told me that if you want to take a dentist appointment in Uvascula, you have to wait for many, many days or maybe months, yeah? But if you want to see the dentist, and if you live in Murame region, you can get it fast. So I can say that on one developmental indicator, Murame is better developed than Uvascula. Yeah.
You also might check how many years there are.
Yeah, how much access to education these kids have? Are these the areas where there's no school and people have to go far away to study? You know, something like this. So here you can have you have given me at least 4 or 5 concrete measures of development. It'll be unnecessary to take all of them. It will be even infeasible to take all of them. You pick some because they are approximating the subject of your research. This is why we use a phrase proxy here. So in this example, along with very concrete variables, because the problem is more among the, let's say, 18 to 15-year-old. Let's say this is decided already, let's say, through the literature. You have taken the right column of education. You have taken the right column of criminal activities, because you have to define what is criminal activity, by the way. So you're very clear about them, let's assume, but you're not very clear about these other variables, which can be measured by, you know, the age of maternity, or by the percentage of unemployed people, or the access to education, and blah, blah, blah. When you pick one or some of them, they are called as proxies, because they are not exactly measuring, but they're approximating. Look, now if you take the value of land or in that region, that is an indicator of development, but that is an irrelevant measure of development, to my opinion. Maybe you can justify in this way or that way, but to me, how much wealth is underneath, how much wind energy can be produced in that part of the, part of Vanta or wherever, that is absolutely irrelevant, even though they are developmental measures, but they're not relevant measures. For this kind of study, health, housing, education, social infrastructure are more relevant top measures than these big macroeconomic type of things. So therefore, they are called proxies, okay? Quantitative research is applicable to the phenomenon, which can be measured, of course, the interpretation. I'll come back to it. And by the way, quantitative and qualitative research are not mutually exclusive. It's not that one negates others. It's not this or that. There are two answers. The theoretical answer is that we have to study that in the context of this research, which of these proxies are the nearest ones. But again, we will not know until we analyze them. So sometimes you have to analyze a phenomenon in multiple parts. You first think, maybe your theory says, maybe your instincts say, you know what, the percentage of unemployed people would be a very strong proxy. So given all other proxies, you pick up the percentage of unemployed people. And when you collect this data, you apply in the model, you analyze it, it's found irrelevant. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? But then you try some other proxy. It works. But So in this example, your percentage of unemployed proxy doesn't work, but maybe the percentage of the young age maternity, that makes sense. But guess what? In research, when you are able to prove something, is a finding, is a contribution to the literature. But even if you are not able to prove something, is also a contribution to the literature. Why? Because when you had two proxies of development, one, percentage of unemployed people and percentage of young maternity, you were more, perhaps the literature in other parts of the world, perhaps your own gut feeling was that, you know what, unemployment would be related. It's not. So therefore, you have debunked the popular belief that unemployment have an impact on the crime rate in this context. And not many people were talking about this young maternity, but you proved with your empirical evidence, this is very less talk about variable proxy, but we proved that this is very important. That is your empirical contribution to the literature. So when you prove, the beauty of the research is that when you prove something, it's a contribution. But even when you don't prove something, you debunk a stereotype. That is also your contribution. Make sense?
Like something like outside of your work, but you still like think that it might have like an effect on like research results.
Mm-hmm.
Then is it even good to mention in the conclusions or at the end of the thesis work, research work, that you predict that this should have like effect on the end results?
Definitely.
That those like outside.
Definitely. Very, very, very good point. Look, your data is not supporting your hypothesis. You are thinking that this variable would have a connection, but it's not. So you can't just wash off your hands. You can also assume that maybe you haven't collected the right type of data. Maybe the data you collected is not from the right kind of respondents. Or maybe the data you collected is biased. People are not willing to talk about the young age maternity issue much. So maybe people, whatever data you got is from some, some reliable sources. How reliable they are is a different thing. Or maybe the model you adopted to analyze the data is not foolproof. Okay, so just because you are not able to prove or disprove something, it doesn't mean that that is a end of the world. So it could be possible that some other researcher in a different setting, the different new data with a new measure of data or with a different method of analysis, they are able to prove the results differently. So you give this kind of disclaimer statement when you're talking about the limitations of the research. And you also confess that we are not able to take all the variables. You can't take all the variables. It's not even possible. Yes, you see my point? You can have 5 variables, 6 variables, 7 variables, but there would be still some variables which remain out of your reach.
What is the correct place for those? Because of course you need to make like decisions so that you can follow on your schedule and.
Yeah, look, you can, when it comes to the data collection and the data analysis, if you see these kind of possible limitations, you can even make a confession in the methodology section. You can make a confession that, what, since the young maternity data was unable to be collected, even though researcher and the previous researchers say that this can be a strong factor. Therefore, we are using the percentage of unemployed people as a proxy of development. It means here, there is a problem that you are not able to get the data. See what, give a limitation, have a confession in your methodology section. But if you have analyzed the data and it is not proved significant, then you can still ask yourself, did you collect the data in the right way? Did you analyze it in the right way? And if your answer is not a conclusive yes, then accept it in the limitation of the study. Yeah. This is why we often focus on test of robustness. That when you prove something, look, we have a saying that to prove something, to disprove something, I repeat, to disprove something, one example is enough. But to prove something, one example is not enough. So what we often do, and I've done in case of Daniil also, that when we prove some result, we also take one more time, more proxy, more variable, and see that does it work on this also? If it works on 2 times, we have 2 witnesses, then we say, yes, it works. And we use the phrase robustness. I will come to it later on. So we use this, we want to prove that are findings robust or not. Because in the research, as I said, sometimes one proof is not considered enough to make a claim. Coming back to the quantitative and qualitative research, they are not mutually exclusive. In fact, both leads, one lead another. And this, should I say here or should I say, maybe I can give you some idea about the quantitative research. We'll discuss it soon. The quantitative research, we have a theory to begin with. So we have some empirical results in the past, we have some theories, and then we start collecting the data and we want to prove that are our findings in conformity with the theory or not. So we have already a structure. And then we collect the data. So and where does the structure come from? The structure comes from the previous researchers. Okay. And then we want to test our empirical analysis if fitting into the previous, the existing theories in the literature. In the qualitative research, we don't have a theory. In fact, we end up forming a theory. So sometimes it happens that you wake up in the morning and you find that the sun is rising, and then you ask yourself question, hey, why it happened that every time I wake up, the sun is rising, and every time I'm feeling, tired and I want to go to bed, and then sun is setting and moon is rising. You have no reasoning. And then you do it one day, so there is no theory to begin with, okay? There's no theory. And then you start getting this observation 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, depending upon certain number of days and in different parts of the world, but many people, you end up saying that in the morning sun rises and in the evening sun sets. Well, that's what we think, not in Finland, in summertime and the wintertime, but in general, I'm talking about, yeah? You formed a theory. I don't want to go in the technical, scientific details of it, but the theory is that people observe sun rising when they wake up and they see the sun setting when they are going to bed. Yeah, is okay? This theory is given by who? By some qualitative researcher. And then what will the quantitative research do? They take this theory, so they have a ready-made framework. So they have those assumptions, they have some idea. And then they start collecting the data and start testing this phenomenon in this setting, in this society, in that country, that far away from equator, so close to the poles, the North Pole and South Pole. And then they start adding some modification to the existing theory, or at least proving or disproving that is their data fitting into the existing theory or not. So sometime it happens that you don't have a theory to begin with, then qualitative researcher take the lead. And if you want to find some theoretical refinements, then the quantitative researcher take the lead. And overall, this is called intellectual development. This is the knowledge growing process. We have a theory, we don't have a theory, then we have a theory, and then we improve the theory. And then to that extent, that some quantitative researcher with the data, not once, not twice, maybe 50 times, are able to say that, you know what, this phenomenon doesn't work at all now. This theory is now what? Is decommissioned, like the aircraft is decommissioned after certain years. So you decommission the theory. And then what happens? Now it's time to observe new pattern, new behavior. And who does it? Qualitative research. So if you see, they're not foes, they're friends. They're helping each other. Okay, so that is why I wrote here that quantitative and qualitative are not mutually exclusive. So they work in tandem. Yeah. Yeah, I think the one very important thing which I want to use. Do you read when I write with this marker? Or should I change it? Sometimes people have this type of misgiving about the quantitative research, is that quantitative research is all about calculations. You make calculations, you calculate, you measure. But actually, I would say that this is not fully true. Of course, calculations, measurements are very important in the quantitative research, both in data collection and data analysis. But the more important thing is how you make interpretation and how you draw the inference. To me, interpretation is when you are able to write a numeric calculation in some text form, in some narrative form. So when you are able to write the numbers into sentences, right? That is called interpretation. I'll give you an example, but a bit later. Inference is when we draw some conclusions, what lesson we learn, what hereafter. We have done the calculation, we are able to decode the numbers in sentences. What next? What lesson do we learn from it? That is called inference. That is called inference. Imagine your topic of study is, listen carefully. Your topic of study is, does borrowing, we borrow money, does borrowing impact the company's bankruptcy? The popular belief is that those who become bankrupt definitely borrow. You see, those who become bankrupt, men or companies, they are definitely borrowers. They borrowed money, they failed, but not every borrower have become bankrupt. See the story? And what we do, we take the data of the companies, their borrowings, and how close they are to the bankruptcy. So we see some data of bankruptcies and the borrowings. And when we analyze, the number comes to be 0.75. And 0.75 is the number which shows that those companies who have their company's total value is 75% borrowing, they become bankrupt. So in other words, if you're borrowing less than 75%, you don't become bankrupt. 0.75 when you calculate in the whole analysis process is a calculation, right? And then what is the interpretation? The interpretation is that those companies who touch 75% of their value through borrowing, they become bankrupt. This is the interpretation. And what is the inference then? The inference is that it is advised to the companies that they keep their borrowing level below 75% of the firm value. Or if the company is close to 75%, even if it is 74%, 3%, you are living dangerously, because you will be touching this limit. Or even this limit shifts over in the future, 77%, whatever. So as long as you maintain a fair distance from the 75%, you're safe. And if this number is getting close to 71, 72, 73, then you are living dangerously. This is some lesson we learn. This is a lesson that we learn from this finding, and this is called inference. So in the board of directors meeting, if you are the company's CEO, Azam, you can say that I saw a study published by Harvard Business School, and they found out that if the company's value is borrowing equal to 75%, they can become bankrupt. Guys, we are 69% already. So what lesson we learned from this study? That we should stay away at a margin of at least 8 to 10% from this limit. Then we can consider ourselves as a safe company. This is called inference. So the narrative, as I said, now here, when you say that 75% of company value is borrowing, which is dangerous, and when you are giving the presentation and telling the company, your board of directors that, hey, let's keep a 10% of distance between this limit. This is not numbers. This is a story. This is a narrative. This is an idea. It has nothing to do with calculations. So if I say a third of it, a third of it, and a third of it. So in the quantitative research, 2/3 is non-numeric. So therefore, it's very important that whenever you are, remember, you're not studying maths. If it's a maths, then 0.75 is 0.75. In science, for example, if you say H2O, then it's 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part of oxygen. Even if it is 1.9999 part of hydrogen, it doesn't work. It has to be 2. You see my point? But it's not maths. It's statistics. It's econometrics. This is why if I had my pure finance students, I would never use the phrase calculation here. I would say what? Measurement. So we use the measurements. In the measurements, there is some human error permissible, but not in the calculations. Calculations are exact. You see my point? So the interpretation and inferences are very important. So whenever you see some numeric value, you need to justify with the logic or with the theory. So be careful when you make an interpretation. Look at this first finding. I want to show these 2 findings, and then I would give the break. But maybe the problem is that if I give you break now, and it's more than 10 minutes, the problem is that this Zoom recording would be lost. I have to start again, So I don't want to give. I'm sorry, I don't want to give you a break, but I will try to be fast so that I don't keep you for a long time. Very quickly, this new advertisement, it shows that in the late May, 30% rise in the consumption of ice cream. So in the end of May, you observed that the ice cream sales has increased by 30% in comparison to the following 3 months. So May 30%, June, July, August, no, less, but May is 30% more. Thus, we can say that the advertisement was effective. Try to understand. You make an advertisement about the ice cream. Ivan, you made an advertisement of the ice cream. When did you make it? In the month of May. And what happened? Your sales went up immediately by 30%. And how do you know it? Because in the next month, in June, July, and August, maybe you're studying it in September, October, and you found that your May sales was 30% more than the following months. So can we say that the advertisement campaign in the month of May was good? You should have done it in June, July, August, even in December.
Other years,
Mm-hmm.
when you did not do the campaign
In the month of May.
in the month of May. But,
Very good.
But if you have data from several previous years
Mm-hmm.
from the month of May,
Mm-hmm.
in consideration that if the weather has been the same, if there hasn't been any big festivals on the area, if the variables are the same for the previous years,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. What else you can draw? What conclusion you draw from here?
Might be seasonal effect.
Hmm?
Seasonal effect.
Yeah, May is a warm month. Maybe in June, July, the rain comes and people don't eat ice cream much during the rain. They like to sip something. Of course, they don't drink bluggy, but they don't drink. They don't eat much ice cream either. Maybe it's not a good. I think if you really want to see the pure impact of the advertisement, then it shouldn't have been done in the month of May, because May anyway is a people like, even if it is not a very good ice cream, they can still eat it. If there's no choice, maybe people still eat it. If you really want to check how advertisement is rigorous, do it in the month of December, and or some other month.
Most published result, because like December is yours, but
Yeah.
the lowest consumption days.
Very good, very good. See, I only use the word 30% once, but for the last 3 minutes, we have been talking about our arguments and counter arguments, opinions, thoughts. What could be done better? So here, essentially, we're talking about the interpretations. So it means that whenever you are making some conclusion based on some pure number, do it with a pinch of salt. And remember the interpretation, the multiple interpretation, somebody can say, oh yes, 30% is big. June is even hotter. And there is a more, so if this advertisement was not successful, then June sales should have been even more, because June is hotter. So the advertisement is successful. But then on the other side, you are saying that this advertisement is not successful because we don't have the data of the previous year's May. And also May by nature is hot month. Maybe June, July, rain comes. Look, we are able to give different type of, we're not believing that, we're not saying that it's H2O. We're not saying it's sulfuric acid. We're not saying it. There is a room for intellectual fist fight. So that is the beauty of quantitative research, that we, even though we deal with the numbers, but we can have very different approach towards when it comes to interpretations and inferences.
The company is also like says that, okay, you can do this like advertisement campaign, but you have to do it like on May. So what you sort of like said that, what about if you have like done it on December, it would be like even better for the research.
Yeah.
But now when your like employees sort of like saying that you only have your money to spend for this on May.
Yeah.
And not outside of it. So do you then need to sort of like mention that in the methodology part, that by the way, this was the sort of the
Yeah.
boundaries.
Boundary, yeah, it's a limitation, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a limitation. It's a limitation. And if you are actually dealing with the company which you're working for, then I think you should put your voice that, you know what, this every time we are only making advertisement in May because we have to close the budget or something. That's not good. That's a poor leadership. We should try the same campaign in random months. Because otherwise you're very happy with the company who makes advertisement for you, and you keep giving the contract to them each year. Hey, you haven't tested them in different months. Therefore, this is a governance issue. This is a leadership issue. Yeah, good point. Cities with the higher number of schools. Oh, why this crime example is not leaving us? Cities with the higher number of schools have more crime. Let's say we made a survey of some big cities, and we found that, you know what, in New York we have thousands of schools, but then in New York we have so much of crime. Can we say that crime and education go together? So if you want to bring down the crime rate, you know, stop teaching kids. No way. No. Yeah, I think this is again, we need to take things with a pinch of salt. That who is leading who, or what type of conclusion we draw. So we need to be very careful, because then we also, okay, if we say this thing, we find out that crime rate, okay, wait a sec, let me draw it. Or maybe because I'm recording it, so it's better that I do it here. So if I have a new share, yeah, text, yeah, okay.
In those cases, because you get sort of the results that, okay, with that person, it increased by 30. That is still like a result of the research. Is it still like you are mentioning your results, but then also confess that, okay, there are like a lot of possibilities for error or mistake or such.
Yes.
This,
yeah.
Of course, you don't want to like put all your work in garbage and then just sort of accept.
No, you can. It depends upon. I mean, in the thesis, I think you should give as a limitation. That this is the limitation of the finding. It's a methodological limitation. So if you say that it's a methodological limitation, then there is no harm in giving this limitation 2 times. One in the methodology section, and second time when you are writing a last paragraph of your discussion part. So it's worth giving.
Also like a difference between like the thesis work results compared to like I would say like actual research, because with thesis work you are not really okay, you are like creating like research, but actually why are you like doing that thesis work? You actually sort of like assess that how well do you like manage that like methodology side, not really like what kind of like results do you get, more that how do you handle those like techniques and such.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, we need to admit it. We need to give a disclaimer. Maybe when you write some executive report, some consultancy report, you know, then things are a bit different, because then some, you know, there is a clientele relationship between if you are an employee with the boss, or if you're a consultant with a company, because if you are too critical, they will not give you contract next year. So these, but in the thesis, when you writing, you know, it's expected that you tell the truth.
It is like quite common that those actually sort of like focus on what kind of like results you get, even though that's not even like a point for like this work. It's not really like a, or the purpose for that is not really like provide like a new research like information.
Yeah,
it's more like sort of like assess that well that individual student
Sometimes your data is not really representative. For instance, when we have let's say we have New York, we have London, we have Paris, we have some 2 big cities, and we find that in these cities, the crime rate is, is big, and so are the number of schools. Should we make a conclusion that we should abandon all the school? No, because what are we missing? Because the data is too homogeneous. We're not considering the other cities, which are comparatively, so we're not making any comparison with the small cities. And here, you take crime rate, which is a comparative measure, like a percentage, right? But when it comes to education, you're taking total number of schools, for example. If you take the absolute number of schools, obviously they are more in the big cities. And in the big cities, we also have high crime rate. Thus, we by default end up believing that more education leads to more crime rate. It means there is a methodological limitation here. Something is missing, as you are saying, about this data, about the survey, about the food and restaurant, these kind of things. So the same thing can happen. So there is a limitation of data. Maybe we should have taken some comparative data elsewhere as well. Maybe if you take some big cities, take the data of the small cities also. And then make so it's a comparative analysis rather than the standalone analysis. Yeah.
Amount of schools per capita.
Yeah, you could make education per 1,000 of population. So you could also, like if I were you, I would not calculate education as it is by the number of school. I would say the number of school, schools, maybe per 1,000 of people. Per 1,000 population. That would give me a relative measure of my education variable also, rather than taking just number of schools in a city, So sometimes because of the lack of theory, number one, and secondly, because of the lack of knowledge about these statistical techniques, we end up making a wrong inference. Look, more number of schools is a fact in the big cities. There's also a fact that there are more crime rate in the big cities. So can we say that this is, we may end up having a very bizarre conclusion.
So let's say that in Finland, how deep you need to go as a sort of determine that what kind of variables you use? Because in Finland, you can sort of like say that, okay, in one classroom, you can have like, for example, 30 students, and then you have these instructions, regulations, you can sort of like say that what is the average size for like school, and that way define like more accurate.
Yeah, good point. It means that if I'm taking a data of multiple cities, then one variable in the given model I'm missing is the regulatory requirements. In some countries where these cities are based, there is a regulatory requirement that you have some distance, or maybe certain number of kids in the class, not more than that. So some regulatory requirements, they are in one country, or they are, but in a different way in the other country. So I'm not in this model, which made me say that more education, more schools, more crime is missing one important variable. Yeah, is the role of regulatory requirements. So next time when I do this research, I should also include some regulatory data, some regulatory variables.
Like the fact that you noticed, like, often had already like done the research.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. If you've done this research and you have missed the regulatory, then as a new researcher, in the next research, when I start writing my research background, I would say, because I have to justify why I'm researching it, I would say that the previous researchers have failed to take regulatory requirements as a determinant of the association between the education and crime rate. So try to understand why we give the limitations in our final paragraph of the thesis or the article. Because it's like a relay race. We want to give the baton to the other people. When they read, for example, if you read my research and I admitted with head high that these are the limitations of my research, then somebody else can be interested in exploring the same theme, but this time adding this variable. Who knows, it works. And then you can say, when you position or justify your research in the beginning, the introduction chapter section, you can say that the rationale of doing this research is that the previous researchers have failed to incorporate regulations as a determinant while studying this phenomenon.
Or like really the thesis work when like thinking about how thoroughly you need to do.
Yeah. Well, I think when you start learning, when you start reading maybe 10, 20 articles in related to your research, you start developing this feeling. You start getting. Sometimes you do it intuitively, and sometimes it's written explicitly in the articles as such. But you start getting a little bit pro and finding out that why this study is published when similar has been published 2 years ago. Yeah.
How thoroughly you need to do like things and also is like true or you actually start doing things.
No. Look, don't think this way that if you make some initial draft, you will never change it. You will change it so many times. Believe me, this is exactly why I said that if I were a researcher, I would write my introduction chapter. I will not say write, but I would do a lot of editing of my introduction chapter at the end of my thesis process. But I would rather focus on the literary review part. Literary part at least gives you different thoughts, opinions, but it doesn't tell you to cancel your previous draft. You can still continue, but if it is an introduction chapter, you have to bring so many changes. But of course, we have different journeys. We all work differently sometimes. All right. I hope I'm able to show it, but maybe I share it again because sometimes it doesn't work this way. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Yeah. Maybe when you form how quantitative research is used in different type of research design, we are having some. Here I'm trying to justify that in what form of studies we use the quantitative research, what type of philosophy approach you adopt when you think that you should use the quantitative research methods or methodology. The first type of study which comes to my mind is exploratory studies. Exploratory research is something which you know very less about to begin with. Perhaps you are the only or maybe the fewest researcher who are studying this phenomenon in a certain context. Maybe people have done it in Mexico, in Argentina, and in other countries, but maybe not in Finland, or maybe not in some other country, So you are basically exploring either an existing phenomenon, but not in your context, or it's a new phenomenon altogether. Technically, this type of research is closer to qualitative research because you don't have the theory in the first place, or maybe very raw form of theory, but not a concrete theory. But still, you can use a bit of quantitative research. But the role and the scope of quantitative research is very limited. For example, your study is what factors make a person drug addict. Imagine that we don't have a theory, we don't have an existing theory beforehand. Then it could be possible that we have to might have to meet those people who are into drug, people who consume it, who are addicts, and those who are drug peddlers, and all these people. But obviously, the nature of the topic is so sensitive that none of these stakeholders would come so obviously in the picture because of the social stigma and also because of risk to the life. You see my point? The information is very sensitive. So here, you have to explore things in a very tactful manner. You can't get the data in Excel spreadsheet and calculate mean, median, or mode. Can you do it? It's a bit difficult. So in the very exploratory type of research, where the outcome of the phenomenon is very unpredictable, a little bit unknown, little bit people have they raise their brows when you ask about the thing. The role of quantitative research is very limited. So in the very exploratory type of research, the role of quantitative research is very limited. Maybe to some extent you can apply. For example, you can find after the study that, you know what, I met 1,000 people. 100 were in the age group of 15 to 17. 150 were in the age group of 18 to 21. 500 were over 25. You see my point? And then you can find out, maybe you can plot something on a graph, and then you can give the idea that in your study where you find the problem of drug consumption, drug addiction more impactful. And you might find that, you know what, in the age of 15 to 25, the graph goes up. So maybe there is a problem. But again, as I said before, the scope of using quantitative research is very, very limited. Because of the very nature of the research. Number one, it is sensitive. Number two, we don't have much theories which justify this phenomenon. Descriptive is something very, 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 very interesting. Descriptive is something when you give a profile of a person or a company or an organization or a situation. Look at the word descriptive. Description. For example, somebody want to give my description. Shab, male, Indian origin, 52-year-old, working as a senior lecturer, lived in 6 different countries, whatever else. That's my description. And then same way, you can find a description of a company. Finnair, so many fleets, this much, these many countries with a fly, very good development in Asia, very bad performance in Europe. Next, performance, stock prices going down, accounting profit going down, but at the same time, there is a lot of support by the state. State owns almost 70%. What I'm talking about now, description of who? Of a company. Describing you, describing a company, describing a country. A country, geographical area, so many square kilometers, per capita income, this much, unemployment rate, this much, number of neighboring countries, 5, description. So in the studies where you have a lot of scope for describing a situation, a person, a company or an organization or a certain, kind of whatever the scenario. Accidents, a car accident. How many cars collided? Daytime, nighttime, speed limit in that area, in the area of accident, number of witnesses, description. So wherever those studies, you find that there's a room for description so that you can understand some idea. In quantitative research, we use the descriptive statistics as a first time. I call them as a teaser. You know the teasers, the movie teasers? That before you go deep down into analysis, remember I told you in the morning that in this course, we'll be focusing on descriptive and the inferential statistics. Descriptive is the first-hand introduction. So I'm introducing, hey, here comes the basic information about the data. That is called descriptive statistics. And how do we measure it? Very simple. The very high school type of statistics that we use is called descriptive statistics, which we shall study separately, not now. Often the average, the mean, the median, the mode, the standard deviation is something that we use to describe the descriptive statistics. But it's a very basic level. And here, if you are interested in seeing, I hope I have done, I haven't forgotten. Luckily, I haven't gone. So what I do, I have my variables, you see. Don't worry who these variables are, but see this thing. There is a mean, there's a median, there is a standard deviation, there's a range, minimum, max. So these basic things, very, very basic calculations. So it's like a curtain raiser. So before I do deep down analysis, I want to introduce what are the basic characteristics of my data. That is called descriptive statistics. It's like you're interested in somebody and you meet the person, but in the first meeting, you only want to see, hey, what are your hobbies? What color of clothes you like to wear? You like this musician? You like what type of song you like, and then things become serious afterwards. But before you go into that level, that is called descriptive. So we also have some descriptive statistics in our human relationships. So that way you can see it. So description is something very basic introduction about the data. Not too deep. You can't draw any conclusion from that. Remember, that is the best part or very important part of descriptive statistics is that you are only giving some summary statistics of the data, but never draw any conclusion from that. Because to draw the conclusion, we need to go down where? To inferential statistics. Okay? Sorry, that is wrong.
What about coffee?
I think you're right. I can stop here. And if the need be, we can start a new Zoom session. No big deal. If you just give me a second. Yeah, I think it's 2 o'clock now. But will you get coffee, by the way? No. You can try. Daniil, can you try?